This is a conversation with Arjunananda. He's a monk at ISKCON New York, particularly a guide and mentor for students in this city. His main research involves applying Vedic knowledge into personality development. In this conversation, we discuss his journey from studying computer science at NIT Surathkal to becoming a monk, life as a monk in an ashram, relevance of the Bhagavad Gita and its key message. And then we also dive into simulations, consciousness, and what happens after death. This is no time. If you like what you see, then do hit subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, or rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Money can't buy you happiness, and this conversation will definitely show you that. But it can definitely support this podcast. As I mentioned, this is getting harder and harder for me to do, but I'm going to keep doing it. So you can put some respect on the hustle and consider making a donation on Patreon. For the forms of love and support, you can follow this channel on Instagram or Twitter, or follow me personally. And now, it's no time. The poet Robert Frost was walking through the forest one day and he came across two paths that led in completely different directions. And this is the poem he wrote about them. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first one another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. So around 5 years back, you were living the dream. You were studying computer science at NIT Surathkal. So how did you end up at ISKCON as a monk? Can you describe that transition in your life?
Sure. So I'll just start with the prayer. We usually start with prayer before we start anything.
Sure.
Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this prayer actually means that this world, we are all in a place which is like a dense forest in the dark at night. So we can hear the hissing of snakes, we can hear the roaring of some ferocious animals, but we cannot see anything. So how fearful it may be for that person. So when we are walking through such a forest, just somehow we happen to step on a torchlight and we pick it up and we can, if we switch it on, once the light is on, our whole path is laid, right? So then we can easily go back to home or something. We can get out of that forest. So similarly, this prayer says that I offer my obeisances, I offer my gratitude to my teachers who have given me the precious knowledge, which actually has opened my eyes to see the reality. Right? So this is what the prayer means. So first, I would like to thank you for taking out your time. And I'm grateful to you that usually not so many youths are interested in hearing the Bhagavad Gita. So I felt that this is a platform which can actually reach out to other people also. Those whoever watch your podcasts or your interviews, they can get benefited. So coming to your question, 5 years ago, I was doing my computer science, but definitely it was never my dream thing to do. But usually I've heard this from one of my teachers. He says, and we all have been brought up in Indian families. So that's how it usually is. Either you're an engineer or a doctor, a lawyer or a failure, right? So even with the same pressure, I was doing computer science, and it is interesting, computer science, the coding and all that. But somewhere I felt that maybe there was something more to life. From childhood, I remember I was interested something in books which were of the category of adventure or crime or mystery, something like that. So I felt there's something much more to life than just the routine lifestyle which everyone in this world is following. So when I was doing my computer science, two things happened. On one hand, I was in an Indian hostel, and this is very likely with every other hostel in maybe across the world where people are into wrong habits and they talk about things which are not so important, and they talk about studies just before exam, right? Especially engineering. So when I saw that type of lifestyle, because I was brought up in a Brahmana family, so the culture is a little strong. It's no drinking, no smoking, and no bad habits. But when I went to the hostel, it was like a culture shock. Though I went from Dubai to India, from Abu Dhabi to India. So what one would expect is more of culture in India, but I got more of culture in Abu Dhabi, right? So when I went back to India in the hostel, when I saw these things, that actually made me want to quit hostel. So, but we were just going on with that, and I was just going on with that. And other thing which happened was I got a someone handed me this Bhagavad Gita as it is. So when I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, and I also met some of my friends who had studied the Gita, and they were practicing the principles of Bhagavad Gita, and they were gentlemanly. So that attracted me very much. They were very simple at heart. They were pure in their lifestyle, and their habits were good, and they were like gold medalists, silver medalists, so they were acing the exams. So they had everything what I was actually looking for. So some sort of a more lifestyle based on character. So then I started studying the Gita and associating with these friends, and then so that lifestyle attracted me. Then I started visiting, because I got Bhagavad Gita as it is. So I started visiting ISKCON temple. I've gone to temples in Pune and in Bangalore. So when I went there, I saw many monks there. They were going out. They were from morning, they get up very early until night. Either they are working on their personality or helping others improve their personality. So I saw this lifestyle of servitude, which attracted me very much. So then I thought, I also worked. I worked for some time in Bangalore in a company called Tesco. After that, I felt this is what I'm actually looking for, because I sensed a feeling of fulfillment, which nothing in my life actually gave, right? Just like some things can give pleasure, like going to a theater or going for bowling. It can give some sort of a thrill or some sort of pleasure, but pleasure is not necessarily equated with happiness or fulfillment or satisfaction. But when I came and practiced the principles of Gita, and I saw how these principles of Gita could affect others' lives positively, that actually gave me more fulfillment. So I thought, and my father was anyway, he's well off. He's not in need of money or anything because he was working in Abu Dhabi. So I thought, why not I give my life for a better cause than filling my own pocket? It's better to serve others.
You said something very interesting when you mentioned that people, when they're living abroad, and we've noticed that in the Gulf, both of us have grown up in the Gulf, they tend to keep the core of their culture and their tradition a lot more. They hold on to it a bit more, as compared to people in India. And I felt the same. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that in a foreign land of sorts, we end up becoming slightly more nationalistic, slightly more patriotic, and maybe slightly more religious as well? Why do you think that happens?
I think it's by nature, because when we are at our home, we don't understand the necessity of water. But you go to a desert, and you are going to stay near the oasis and nowhere else, right? So it is more of a necessity, because when we go to abroad where the culture is very different from our culture, then we become something like homesick. We have been brought up in a certain culture, and when you go to somewhere else, then you want to hold on to what you have been brought up with.
Of course. Yeah, makes sense. Sorry, so you were talking about your father and when you were working at Tesco, and that's when you made the decision. So what was the tipping point? Did you have one moment where you decided, this is it, I'm going to now take up a completely different path?
For me, it was more of a planned. When I was studying itself, I felt, working and just making money and getting married. And there are monks. We have in our culture, there are two types of monks, or brahmacharis we call them. One is called Naishtika Brahmachari, who is like a lifelong celibate, completely dedicated. And second one is also completely dedicated, but he gets married and has family. He's called as Upakurvana Brahmachari. So we have both of them. So, but I chose the first path, and it was more of a planned, because I felt when I was in hostel, I was practicing the principles of Gita, and I felt, why not have it?
Was there resistance from your family when you decided to move?
Yes, of course. Of course.
How did you combat that resistance?
Initially, there was resistance, and gradually, I think my father also saw that I was pretty much convinced with what I'm doing, and I'm also being productive. I've told him how I go to universities and teach students about Bhagavad Gita, and how there are many people who have gone to the point of they're quitting their studies or very low scores, and they're going to depression. And such people, after coming in contact with the principles of Gita, they have actually become very much positive in their life, and they have they beam bright smiles from their faces. So there's so many case studies, and when he found out that this is what I'm doing, he's trying to digest.
Trying to digest.
trying
So
to
there's still some resistance.
Yeah. Yes.
There's always going to be some resistance. So what was your first month in an ashram like? Was it ISKCON Bangalore? Was it?
No, I was in in Bangalore.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. So what was your first month like? Was there resistance from your own self? Like, was it a struggle at any point? Did you feel like adapting to this life at maybe the first month? Was any temptation to go back to quote unquote normal life?
Yes, maybe probably for the first 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I was just thinking maybe I shouldn't have quit my job. No, and my father was also screaming on the phone, why the hell?
Why were you feeling that? Sorry.
I was feeling, because I thought maybe I could have waited for some more time, because I worked for, as I graduated, then I worked for 8 months or so, and I just quit the job. And then I wanted to completely dedicate and get the training and help others. So when I joined, I just had the feeling that I could have worked for some more time and got more, maybe earned more money, and given to my parents or taken care of the needs. But all that is even taken care of now. I was just feeling it's just like it's completely new.
And how did that pass after the 2 weeks?
It's just like time.
Just time.
Just time.
So it was just adapting to the new
Yeah,
environment.
it was just adapting to the new environment.
So what does an average day in an ashram for a monk look like? What do you do?
Generally, we get up early in the morning. Some serious monks get up like 2 a.m. But everyone is serious. Others get up at 3:30 or 4 a.m. But usually not more than after 4. And we have at 4:30 in across the world, or most of the temples, we call it the Mangalarti in the morning, where the deities are worshipped, and we sing some bhajan, and we do kirtan of Hare Krishna mantra, and we like sing and chant and dance in the morning. That's the first thing we do. And after that, we have meditation for a couple of hours, 2 hours, probably from 5:15 to 7:15 or so. And we chant the Hare Krishna mantra for 2 hours. And then we have, again, the deities are bathed and they are worn new clothes. So we have, again, darshan. After which we have Bhagavatam. We have a class on Vedic scriptures, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam. And following that, we have nice prasadam, the breakfast prasadam. And during the day, we allot maybe 2 to 3 hours for personal study of the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita or other wisdom literatures. And after that, we go out. We reach out to people to give out the Bhagavad Gita, or we go to universities and teach, or different programs. Different monks have different programs depending on age groups. Some tutor to youths, some tutor to middle-aged or working professionals or married couples, some tutor to elderly people. Accordingly, we have different programs throughout the day, and we have lunch, and then in the evening we actually come back. We come back and we have Bhagavad Gita class, and we have hot milk, and then we take rest. We usually take rest early because we get up early. We take rest by 9:30 max.
Is there value in reading books, non-spiritual books, non-religious books? Is there scope for that?
Yeah, yes, of course, if it's actually helping us in our goal. Because anyone who wants to be a monk is just like there's a quality of a monk called as avyarta kalatvam. It means to utilize every moment for the actual purpose of life. That is usually practiced by the monks. So whatever books we use, even if it's like non-spiritual, like there is this book called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. He has spoken in one of his reports that he has taken the principles from the Bhagavad Gita. So some of us do study that, because even in ashram we are dealing with people, right? And these are all the other monks who also have dedicated themselves to something. And when we want to deal with them, we don't want to be have any conflicts inside. So sometimes we do that, but we use such books just to, whichever helps us go forward in this path.
You also mentioned, of course, you sit and meditate. Blaise Pascal had said that most of man's problems stem from his inability to sit quietly in a room alone. So when you're meditating, what are you doing? What forms of meditation are you practicing, and how do you meditate?
Yeah. So meditation, it is a struggle. It is very much a struggle. But before that, there are two types of meditation.
Is it still a struggle for you?
Yes. It is a struggle.
That's comforting to hear.
Yeah. So there are two types of meditation. One is where we do our personal meditation. We sit down and we try to focus our mind on chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we chant it. Most of the monks, we all do like 100. We have our beads like this one. These are the beads inside. So there are like 108 of these. So one round constitutes 108 times of Hare Krishna mantra. And then we do it 16 times. So that takes approximately 2 hours. That is one form of meditation. Another form of meditation is we get together and we bring our instruments and we sing and dance.
What is the difference between the two? What is the power of the chant? What does that do? What are the benefits of that? And what is the difference? Is there a difference in feeling that you experience after the group meditation as well? How do you compare the two?
Yeah, good question. And when we do group meditation, it's more like synergy. Like 1 + 1 is 11. So when we all come together and we bring instruments and focus on Hare Krishna mantra, there is a tune, there is music, there is a lot of joy in singing and dancing. So that actually helps us to go deeper into our personal meditation, it's our where we recite the mantra and use our mind to focus on the mantra, right? So that actually gives us more encouragement, more empowerment to do personal meditation. And in turn, when we do personal meditation, which is called japa, that actually helps us to again come together and do coming together, the group chanting, which is called as kirtan, sankirtan, like that. They reinforce one another.
Right. So when you're doing a personal meditation, it's the chant that you're focusing on all the time.
Yes.
So is that what's going on in your mind? Is just the chant throughout?
Yes. Why? Because there are different meditation. Some meditations say not to focus on anything. Some say just a dot. But our meditation technique is so configured that we focus on Hare Krishna mantra because it's spiritual. It is mentioned in the Vedic scriptures, and it has different effects, like spiritual effects, which I can tell we can discuss in the future in our discussion. And but if our mind has to focus on something, it cannot focus on nothing, right? Just like right? Because our mind cannot be void. If we are not focusing on X, automatically our mind is everywhere else. So we need some object of meditation. But that doesn't mean we have any object of meditation, right? So we need the right object of meditation, which can help us go ahead in the path. So that meditation, that object of meditation, according to Bhagavad Gita, according to different wisdom literatures, is chanting the names of God. And not just Bhagavad Gita. Even if you see Quran, if you see Bible, any other religious text, they all have the same process of chanting the names of God.
Got it. Okay. Before I dive into the questions about the Gita,
okay,
I have a slightly personal question for you, just based on this interview. Sri Gauranga Das had once said that there is a mysterious, simultaneous existence of both joy and sorrow in a spiritualist's heart.
Yeah.
And looking at you, I feel the same.
Okay.
Would you agree with him?
Yeah, but I don't know why you feel that I have sorrow.
I just get this feeling. So there's a lot of peace, a lot of happiness.
Okay.
But it also feels like there is some sorrow. There's an understanding of some grief or some sorrow somewhere.
Yeah, I perfectly agree with him. And that's our philosophy, actually. Because spirituality, usually what is thought of by the people outside, I mean, those who are not practicing spiritual life, they think spiritual life means just like dry detachment. You have to leave everything, to wear saffron robes and leave the city, go to the forest and I don't know, do what? Just meditate on nothing. It seems so dry. It's not at least recommended in the Kali Yuga, in this age. So what we do is we have meditation focusing on Hare Krishna mantra, and we have positive, uh, what can we say, positive aspects of meditation, right? Our spiritual practices are filled with positive aspects. Like, who doesn't like singing? Who doesn't like dancing? The whole college, if you have Diwali program, the first thing they want is, usually they have the disco today.
Yeah.
It's all singing and dancing,
Yes.
right? I think it was Nish or some philosopher in Europe in the 1800s or 1900s. He said that I actually believe in God if he sings and chants, he sings and dances.
Right.
That was his philosophy.
Right.
But when he before he died, he went to a church wall and he wrote, "God is dead," because no one could see God. In those days, it was all like communist parties. And then he put "God is dead" hyphen his name, Nish, I think.
Nietzsche.
Yeah.
Friedrich Nietzsche.
I guess
Okay.
it's mostly him.
Right.
Then he died, and someone wrote, scratched off God and wrote "Nish is dead" hyphen God.
Right.
But he said, I would actually believe in God if he sings and dances. So in most of the actual practices of spirituality, there's always singing and dancing. So it's very joyous. But at the same time, we do take anxiety to reach out to others, right? Because stress is not all in all condemned. Stress is good when it actually motivates us to do something, get into action. So we have some sort of anxiety and stress in thinking, how can I give this Gita to use? How can I teach them? How can more people start practicing the principles of Gita, and how can they benefit from this? So that requires some level of anxiety. But all this sorrow, I wouldn't say sorrow, but anxieties or happiness, they're all on a spiritual platform. It's not same as the happiness or an anxiety is taken, undergone by a man out who is not practicing spiritual life. Because even the sorrow in spiritual life takes you ahead, but the sorrow outside takes you down. That's why you have self-help books and books to manage stress and distress and all that.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about the Gita. They say you can open any page of the Gita and you will get the answer that you're looking for. Gaur Gopal Das has gone on record to say that the Bhagavad Gita is not a religious book, it's a book about life. So if you had to give a synopsis of the Gita to someone who hasn't read it, what is the Gita about and what is the key message in it?
Okay. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is an interesting book. First of all, what I would like to mention is the background of Bhagavad Gita. So I'm pretty sure every Indian would have heard the Mahabharata or watched Mahabharata. He knows how the story is going. So when the Pandavas, they were, in a way, destined to fight the Kauravas because they went on the exile. They followed all the impositions by the Kauravas, and they went to exile. They did the last year Ajnatavas, where they had to be covered, and if they were found, they again had to go to another exile. That was the condition, and they fulfilled everything for 14 years. And then when they came back, still the Kauravas said, "We cannot give you the kingdom back." So that time, and what I like about the Pandavas is that they're very noble. Though Bhima and Arjuna wanted to go and fight, but Yudhishthira said, "No, they are our brothers. Let's first try for peace." So they sent Krishna also as a peace messenger, but Kauravas didn't heed. And finally, Krishna told them that there's no other option apart from war, because they tried everything. And Duryodhana, the head of the Kaurava team, he said, "I cannot give even that much land to the Pandavas upon which a head of needle can rest." What that means, like a dot of land. So because the Pandavas said, "You keep the kingdom, and we are happy because we are Kshatriya by nature." Kshatriya means they have to rule over something, and they have to protect that area. So they said, "At least you give us 5 villages." That's a pretty good deal. But Duryodhana said, "I cannot give even a small amount, that much amount of land upon which the head of needle can rest. So then war was destined, and then Pandavas were also very much eager to. Uh, I mean, because Krishna wanted the war, it was Dharma Yudh. We know of all the injustices which the Pandavas underwent. There was cheating in the game, and there was disrobing of Draupadi in the Sabha of generals, and none of them did anything. So the war had to happen, because if war doesn't happen, then the adharma will rule over dharma. And when Duryodhana was ruling, Draupadi is being disrobed in the assembly of generals. So it's not a very good example. What can you expect in future? So then war had to happen, and Pandavas gathered their army, and Kauravas gathered their army, and they came to battle. And one more thing I would like to mention: the Vedic culture, how they would battle this was even prevalent 1,000 years back. When Alexander the Great, he came towards the Indian subcontinent, he saw when Chandragupta Maurya's team, they would fight, they would always take their soldiers, and the king, all of them would have battle outside the kingdom, so that the innocent people are not hurt. But today, when wars happen, they shoot missile, or they first destroy the capital, with the innocent women, children, old people who have nothing to do with the war. So Alexander the Great, he very much appreciated, because Chandragupta Maurya's army was headed by Chanakya Pandit. He was like the guide for them, right? So similarly, they actually went to a place called Kurukshetra, which is called one of the holy lands in India, and they wanted to have a face-off there. So Arjuna was very confident at the beginning, and he told Krishna, you take my chariot in between both the armies, just so that I can analyze both the parties. Let me see who all have assembled on the Kaurava side, and who all have assembled on the Pandava side, and we can get some strategy and we can defeat them. He was very confident. He was like a gold medalist, IIT gold medalist, Arjuna. So when Krishna took Arjuna in between both the teams, and Arjuna, when he saw the Kaurava party, he saw Bhishma, his own, they're all the same family, the family members. And he saw Drona, his teacher, his grandfather, his teacher, his brothers, cousins. Even Duryodhana is his own cousin. So then he lost all confidence. He thought, is there really a necessity for war? Can't we? Then he gives many arguments to Krishna, saying that, best is not to fight. Let Kauravas enjoy the kingdom, and I'll take sannyas. I will go to the forest and I'll just beg alms and survive. So like that, he gave many arguments that if the kings die on the other side, who will take care of the wives? Then if wives are not taken care, the women will be exploited. Then there'll be Varnashankara population. Varnashankara population means that population which is by illicit affairs. So such population create havoc in society. So he gives very nice arguments, saying that if we have this war, there will be a social degradation. And Krishna heard all of this, and then he speaks the Gita. So at this time, Arjuna tells Krishna that my Gandiva is slipping. It's like, a consistent topper in a prestigious university. On the final exam, he's saying, I'm getting nervous to write. So it's something to cope up with. And we all will be in that situation today or tomorrow. They were on an external battlefield, Kurukshetra, but we have our internal battles, right? We always have a choice between the vice and virtue, right? So in this way, actually Bhagavad Gita, then I was talking about Arjuna. So Arjuna said, my Gandiva is slipping, my my hairs are standing on end, I'm feeling nervous, my lips are becoming dry. So he gives a big description of how he's feeling, that inferiority complex. It's not actually inferiority complex. He says how he's feeling too anxious. He's overridden with anxieties. So basically he's going into depression. That is today's term. When nothing works out, people go into depression. So Arjuna was somewhat in that state. So then Krishna speaks the Bhagavad Gita, and he gives different concepts he gives the science of soul, and then he talks about karma yoga, and he talks about controlling the mind. Then he talks about Bhakti Yoga. He also talks about Jnana Yoga, knowledge. He talks about Sankhya in a way that, this is all the material world, everything is made up of matter. So in this way, he actually talks about different concepts in the Gita, which if someone undergoes and understands, he can actually become victorious like Arjuna after the war. Once Arjuna heard the Gita, he became so confident. And towards the end, there's a verse. Actually, Gita is a book which is the entire conversation, though it's between Krishna and Arjuna, it's actually being envisioned by Sanjaya, and he's telling to Dhritarashtra what is happening. He had that power. He could see the war from the palace. So Sanjaya was telling everything to Dhritarashtra because Dhritarashtra was blind. Right? So towards the end, Sanjaya remarks, he tells wherever there is Arjuna, a devotee like Arjuna, and wherever there is Krishna, in such a place there's always victory, there's always prosperity, and there's always opulence. So everyone is looking for this, right? So when we understand and learn and apply the teachings of the Gita, that time we are bound to be unaffected by suffering, we are bound to be unaffected by things of this world, but be happy and be happy throughout our lives. We can do that. We can be peaceful because we cannot say that there is not going to be a havoc in our life tomorrow, right? There is going to be a conflict today. There is going to be havoc tomorrow, a disaster day after tomorrow. But Krishna actually helps us to rise ourselves beyond these problems and stay aloof from these problems, being unaffected by the problems.
Is there one verse or one message that really sticks out to you as like one of your favorite verses?
Yeah, actually, there are many.
Okay.
But I still remember this is for the internship, when I was sitting for interview for Amazon. So there were many other stalwarts like 9.8 pointer and 10 pointers also sitting.
Yeah.
But definitely I was nervous. So then I had this Gita on my phone. So I just took out this verse. It's from the 5th chapter, 29th verse. It's called the peace formula.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram suhritam sarva bhutanam jnatva mam shantim richati. It's in Sanskrit. So Krishna is saying this. If someone understands that me, Krishna, is not me as in I am Krishna, but Krishna is the enjoyer, he is the controller and the proprietor of everything. And such a person is the most dear friend of every living entity. So then, that person who understands this knowledge, he can be peaceful. Why? Because just suppose we want to get into US and study, where we want to get into some university. And the university for which you're aiming, the professor there is your uncle. So you have a recommendation, or you have a clear pathway. You don't have to be really nervous because you're confident he'll take care. So similarly, Krishna is saying, in this world, everything belongs to me and I am controlling everything, and I am also the beneficiary of everything. Everything is meant for my enjoyment. But not that now Krishna is controller and proprietor and everything, enjoyer, and we have no relationship with him. But such a great person, he's our most dear friend. And how confident should we be? So really, should we worry about the problems? Right? So this is called the peace formula, because it actually, just when we understand that such a great person is on our side, then we become peaceful. Just like there was this incident. There's a small story that there was an airplane. It was undergoing some strong turbulence in the air. So all the people started, freaking out. They were screaming and shrilling and everything. But there was a small girl sitting near the window, and she had no sign of worry on her face. So the elderly man sitting next to her, he was bewildered. He was thinking, how is she so calm and peaceful? So he went on to ask her, how come you're not freaking out? Just look at all the people screaming and creating a mess. So she said, do you know what? My father is the pilot of this plane. So I know I'm pretty sure he'll take me back home. So something like that. If we understand our relationship with God and understanding what his capacities are, then we don't really have to be worried about anything in our life.
You mentioned understanding our relationship with God. Can I ask you, what is the Gita's interpretation of God, of Brahman?
Brahman, yes.
Brahman. So what is God according to Gita?
So Krishna actually goes on to explain about himself. So wherever in the Gita we don't see Krishna Vacha, we say Bhagavan Vacha. So in other Vedic literatures, Parashar Muni is the father of Vyasadeva, who compiled all the Vedic literatures. So he says Bhagavan. He says, he gives a literal definition. Bhaga means opulences, and Van means one who possesses. So he explains that one who possesses 6 opulences completely, in full, he is Bhagavan. So what are the 6 opulences? There is knowledge, there is wealth, there is beauty, there is fame, power. So like this, there are 6 opulences in total. And usually in this world also, we usually get attracted to whom? Those who are beautiful, those who are rich. Like suppose we get attracted to Bill Gates. We get attracted to Bill Gates because he's rich, not necessarily because he's Mr. Universe, right? Or we get attracted to Stephen Hawking because he's a genius, not necessarily he's very smart, or not necessarily he's rich. So these 6 opulences are what we are actually looking for. And Krishna tells elsewhere in the Gita that all this opulences in this world, like if someone is rich, someone may be a lakpati, crorepati, right? And it goes on. But no one can say, I'm Lakshmipati, when Krishna is Lakshmipati, right? Lakshmipati means she is the goddess of fortune, right? But goddess of fortune is wife of who? Krishna, finally. So we say no one can claim that I have all the wealth in this world, or no one can claim I'm the most beautiful person in this world. Right? Even if someone is entitled as Mr. Universe, how long is he going to be Mr. Universe? Right? Because everything, he gets aged, or everything is temporary in this world. So Bhagavan means one who is complete in these 6 opulences. He is most beautiful. He is completely wealthy. He is most powerful. He is most knowledgeable. We can just see the Bhagavad Gita is spoken. It's said to be around 55 minutes or so to Arjuna in the battlefield. But we take years to study this. So it can only be Krishna who can speak such level of knowledge that we spend our lives in going deep and applying in our lives, right? So he's most knowledgeable. So like this, all the 6 opulences, he's complete in all the 6 opulences. And one of the other opulences is renunciation. So how is Krishna renounced? Right? He's God, but he is not attached to any of the opulence, because he had to take the role of a chariot driver for Arjuna. And in those days, you don't have a horn, or when you're going in the battlefield and there are brahmastras being released, so there's a lot of noise. So if Arjuna has to tell Krishna take left, he can do it only by kicking Krishna. So he has to kick, and to the degree the kick is very strong, to that degree he takes the left. So it's very strong, then sharp left, slight left. That's how he directs. So Krishna is not really attached to his position as I am God and everyone should bow down before me. So that's a very limited knowledge of God as generator, operator, and destroyer. That's all he does. He created everything, he's maintaining, and he destroys. But that's a very limited understanding.
I have a slightly personal question for you.
Yeah, no problem.
Was there a moment in your life where you felt the presence of a creator, of a God? It could have been a moment, it could have been a miracle, an event of sorts, where you were certain that this is God.
Yes, for sure. Just like I was mentioning about the interview. So actually, I didn't complete about the interview, right? So when I read this Gita, then I became peaceful. Then when I actually went inside for the interview, the same questions what I practiced, it was all competitive. Like for coding, you get competitive coding questions. So the very same questions which I had practiced before, the same things came. So I didn't even have to think. I just had to put it down from my mind. Then everything worked out. And there were 10 pointers and 9.5 pointers who didn't get selected. And I was selected. So such instances, there are many which actually made me feel that, yes, God does exist. Because we see, when we say God also is his words, like the Bhagavad Gita. So when we apply Gita, Krishna tells in Gita that Rasoham apsu kanteya. Arjuna, I am the taste of water. So when we are very thirsty, we need water and nothing else. There are some moments pretty sure everyone has experienced this. Sometimes we just want water, even if someone stops you and says, you got placed in this company, give me the news later. First, give me water. So Krishna tells, I'm the taste of water. And Krishna tells, I am the strength of the strong. I'm the intelligence of the intelligent. So when we see, actually, when we study Gita, we can actually see, it's called, we develop Shastra Chakshu. It means we gain a vision of the scriptures, of the vision of wisdom literatures, like that. So these are some of the ways I had trained my eyes to see God's hand in our lives. So whenever anything happens, for usually the people who believe, they can see God's hand. Usually, what happens is, I have heard this saying. Actually, devotees see God everywhere, and those who don't believe, like the atheists, see God nowhere. How can it be possible? Like, how can you see something everywhere, and how can someone see it nowhere? Right? Basically, it's based on faith. So anyone can see miracles, but that miracle, seeing that vision of miracles, is possible for one who has faith. And faith is not something just, oh, you are religious and you have to put faith, but I'm so scientific, I don't put faith. Even science requires faith. Even reasoning requires faith. There's a topic by one of my teachers. He gave a talk on faith is the reason for reason. So only if you have faith, then you can, because we put faith in reasoning, that reasoning can give me solutions. So something like that.
You mentioned some atheists.
Yeah.
So I would actually like to play devil's advocate.
No
and I would
problem.
like to run few objections that atheists always raise, and I want to check your opinion on
Okay.
them and what would be your counter for that. So one popular atheist is Sam Harris. I'm sure you must have heard of him. And he had raised one objection for all religious texts. I'm saying in quotes religious. Of course, the Gita is more of a book than just a religious. It's a book about life, as we discussed. So Sam Harris had said that the quest for meaning, for purpose, has to be universal. It cannot be hidden in a particular language or culture. You cannot be born by luck into one religion that has cracked the real meaning of life. So do you think this objection is valid? Do you think the way of life specified by the Gita, why is that right in comparison to other religious texts? Is it possible that people in the subcontinent only stumbled upon the right way of living, and that is now encapsulated into one particular language that we were lucky enough to be born into?
Of course not. I feel, at least what I've been taught and what I've understood, is every religion actually leads one to the goal, ultimate goal. And what the ultimate goal is, to basically, the Gita or any religious text, it actually helps us to understand who I am, who God is, and what is the relationship between the two. So there are so many commonalities. There may be slight differences, but there are so many commonalities. All the scriptures explain about who we are. All scriptures talk about God. All scriptures talk about a spiritual realm beyond this world. All scriptures talk about the evil, the good. These are all commonalities. They talk about the soul, that we are not this body, we are the spirit soul sitting inside the body. So these are concepts mentioned. If you see Quran, if you see Bible, it's mentioned in every religious text. So for him to say that, it's by Sahawa we somehow stumble upon that religion which is like the goal, is not like that. It's basically every religion leads one to the ultimate goal, provided he practices it properly. So even when we reach out, we come across many people of other religions also, and we tell them that actually this Gita is a universal manual. It's filled with universal principles, like God, like sun. Sun is universal. I may call it Surya in Hindi. I may call it different. It is in French. It's le sol, right? So different languages call the sun differently, but ultimately the sun is the sun, right? It doesn't really matter if you call it differently, or one party names it something and another party names it something else, right? Even mother, it's ma in one language, it's amma in another language, right? Even water. So these are all universal things. So similarly, Bhagavad Gita is filled with universal principles. You may call God as Krishna, someone may call God as Allah, someone may call God as Christ, but it's ultimate one God.
The meaning is universal. Okay, so I also want to check another objection. This is a debate Sam Harris had with Jordan Peterson, and they were debating the idea of religious texts being based in the form of a story. And stories, So this is Jordan Peterson's argument. He says stories are a very powerful medium for conveying complex ideas about morality, about spirituality, about ways of living. And they have this evolutionary benefit of being easily remembered and then repeated over the ages. So probably one of the reasons why the Bhagavad Gita has survived so long is because it is in the form of this story that is so captivating that it was passed on generation after generation and until Adi Shankaracharya, who then published his commentary on it as well, and then even survived even further from there. So clearly there's a benefit of that. But the argument that Sam Harris gives now is that even though that evolutionary benefit might exist, now it feels like basing spiritual wisdom in the premise of a story can turn out to be a distraction in the modern age because people are always looking for legitimacy, facts. Did this really happen? Did they really exist or not? And in doing so, what they end up doing is they end up really distracting from what the message of the book is and focusing more on whether it's the characters were real. They go as far as calling a myth or mythology as well. And what are the facts that that event actually happened or not? And the message is completely drowned out. Would you agree with this?
Yeah, I agree to some part of it. The first aspect, that's why the stories are there. Like, what's the good a story without lesson, without morals? So Vyasadeva, who is the compiler of all the Vedic literatures, he knew that people cannot understand who is interested in philosophy directly. Like, it's very technical also. Though Gita is so useful, it's also technical. So when people in general, the common mass, will not want to read something technical. They want some politics, right? They want some flavor. When Draupadi is being disrobed, it's something very creates a lot of suspense. What's going to happen next? So yeah, drama. So all this is provided by a story. So Vyasadeva was so intelligent that he actually made the entire Mahabharata. It's a huge compilation, and in the right in between, he presented the Bhagavad Gita. So people are very much interested in the stories, not much in philosophy. But when you go through Mahabharata, you will stumble upon Bhagavad Gita, and that's exactly the reason. Because, like you said, like he says, because people like stories. But I don't say that it's a distraction, because, like you were mentioning, he feels that if people go through stories, then there's a question on legitimacy, because they want to check if the story is really true, or
If the characters existed, did they
yeah, if
really
the character,
happen?
yes, yeah,
It seems too far-fetched. Science cannot explain it, and all those.
yes,
In comparison to other fiction books, if you tell me Harry Potter, everyone knows
yes,
it's fiction, so I can just
yes,
focus on the message of it. But
correct,
in the
correct.
case of these books, they're always trying to question whether it actually existed or not.
I think, like our founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, he said questioning or doubting is a sign of intelligence. So even in our when we come to these stories, there are people, because we usually reach out to youths in esteemed universities. So these intellectuals, they need some proof, and we have proofs. So when we talk about Mahabharata, there have been archaeological surveys by different archaeologists who have found different remains of the Dwarka city, or of the war, Kurukshetra war. They have found the Gada of Bhima. There are many things like that. So there are different proofs which can actually satisfy the intellectuals. And it is, according to me, I think it's proper. Because when we present something, we don't present it just like that, just a story. But we have even the proofs for that. Also, in when we pass the message down the line over time. So there is something called disciplic succession or parampara. Like, just like we go to school, we don't go to any school. We go to an authorized school. So similarly, to understand the Vedic knowledge, there are 4 authorized schools. The one is headed by Brahma, called the Brahma Sampradaya. Sampradaya means the disciplic succession. Other one is headed by Lakshmi, called the Sri Sampradaya. Other one by Kumaras, called Kumar Sampradaya. And Shiva, called the Rudra Sampradaya. Now, if you go to any other school than these 4, I cannot guarantee that it's really true, the message they're giving. Because the responsibility of these schools is that they bring down the knowledge by accomplished and authorized professors. Right? So if you go to IIT today, you are going to learn from an IIT professor. He himself has undergone training. He himself is very much qualified. He has done a lot of research. He's like 10 times more knowledgeable than me. So I can put faith that if I learn from him, he's going to teach me something valuable. Right? And we see that he has a authorization letter from the school to teach also. Right? Just like we don't just pick up any note. Sometimes the fake notes, right? So similarly, in the sampradaya, we have the bona fide teacher and coming in a bona fide disciplic succession, which is only the 4 schools. So when we go to these 4 schools, then we get the right knowledge because the teachers are right. The disciplic succession is coming down the line like that.
Okay, so let's talk about applying Vedic philosophy and the Bhagavad Gita into controlling your mind. And before that, let's set the premise. So let me start with the dumbest question possible. What is consciousness?
Consciousness means, according to Oxford Dictionary, it means awareness, just to be aware. Or to say, just for example, if we think I am, like existence, that awareness is consciousness. But there are different levels of consciousness.
What are those levels?
So there are different categorizations available. On a very broad scale, like we see, not just humans are conscious, animals are conscious, trees are conscious. Jagdish Chandra Bose, he discovered. Or even insects are conscious, aquatics are conscious. Or even if you go above human beings, the demigods are conscious in the heavenly planets. The heavenly beings, Gandharvas, Apsaras, they're all conscious beings. But how much we can perceive from our environment, that varies. Right? Like the trees, they cannot perceive much because they don't have, even if you see from a scientific point of view, they don't have nervous system. Right? So their perception is very limited. Or if you see different other small animals, they cannot they do perceive, but not as much as human beings. We are more sophisticated in perception. Right? But if you see cows, they are very good at perception. Why? Because there has been some case when even if the farmer, the owner of the cow is like 2 kilometers away, the cow can understand. There's good amount of perception. Or sometimes the calf is taken away from the cow, she cries tears. Even from other animals, they have emotions also. But we see this perception is very much developed in human beings. So all this perception is based on consciousness. So that is one broad categorization. But even if you limit to human beings, the categorization is into 5 levels. So even I don't recall his name. It's called the Maslow's triangle. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Maslow's pyramid.
Of needs.
Yeah. So he says, I can give you the Sanskrit term. He has different levels. The first one is the Annamaya Kosh, it is called. It means in that level of consciousness, one is only worried about food. Like the babies or, not much of consciousness. Just eating and sleeping. But beyond that is Pranamaya Kosh, where one actually becomes more aware and he starts worrying about security. His food and those things are taken care, but now he's worried about defending himself. So we have you have loans, all these different forms of defense. Then beyond that, you have Jnanamaya or Manomaya, same thing. That is on the mental platform. So if someone plays chess and he gets a victory, so that is on a mental platform. He gets mental pleasure because it's on more of a subtle platform, ego level. Then comes Vijnanamaya. Vijnanamaya means of the intelligence. So now he's more developed in consciousness, where he's able to perceive other intelligence platform. It means he can have realizations. He can go. He can understand what this world is all about. He's more into reality. And then final is after when one attains self-realization, and Maslow, I think, calls it the self-actualization in this triangle, the topmost pyramid. It's called Anandamaya, where one actually attains attains self-realization. He understands who am I, who is God, and what is our relationship, and he becomes very blissful. So that is these are the 5 levels of consciousness within the human beings you can see. Other animals would be like, even if you want to put them, they'll be in Annamaya or Pranamaya. That's it. Not more.
So the mind is just one level of the consciousness, which is often, until you step down the path for spiritual discovery, you often feel like your mind is who you are, but it's just one level, is it?
Oh yes, we are actually not the mind also. If we study the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells in 2nd chapter and later chapter also, he tells first we have this gross body, which you can see mine, I can see your body, which people see in the mirrors. So this body is made up of Panch Mahabhut. So Panch Mahabhut means the 5 elements which actually makes up the entire matter. Anything matter, the table, the lamp, the mic, laptop, anything is made up of this Panch Mahabhut. So it is earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are 5 elements. So our body is grossly made up of these 5 things. It's called the gross body. And within this gross body, we have something called the subtle body. Right? So subtle body is it is made up of 3 components. The one is mind, one is intelligence, and false ego. So mind means it's like naughty child, just goes here and there. I want this, I want that. And the intelligence is like the parent who actually controls the mind. Says, okay, you want that, okay, you can have that. Oh, but not that, right? But false ego is thinking this is me. Like most of the people today, they think I am this body. That's because of the false ego. Or once in India, when I was walking on the road, I saw this person in Benz car, Mercedes Benz. He was going and there was heavy traffic, and he was honking, and there was this rickshaw person in between, in ahead of him, and the signal was green, and he wasn't moving. So this person sitting in the Benz car, he said, "Hey rickshaw, move ahead." But he's not rickshaw; he's rickshaw wala, the person in the rickshaw. So sometimes even in different arcades, sometimes we sit in that car, but the car is moving in the screen.
Mhm.
Have you seen that?
Of course, yeah.
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 So when we play, we are thinking we are actually there,
Yeah.
actually racing, but actually we are not there. We are ourselves sitting outside on a simulator, right? So this identifying ourselves with something else other than our original um, nature is called the false ego. So our subtle body is made up of these 3 things: mind, intelligence, and the false ego. And beyond that, within that is our self, the soul. So this soul is actually the person. This is like us. It's called Atma. And so then it's like us, we have inner covering, like, banyan and or thermal something. And beyond that, we have shirt, pant, like that. But we are actually the person. We are not the shirt. So as per the tips for controlling the mind, so our Vedic wisdom, it gives many tips, out of which the different tips for different ages. And we see that this age of Kali Yuga is age of distraction. So we have weapons of mass distraction, right? So today, to practice silent meditation, just meditation in the mind, or to go to forest, today you cannot go to forest. Those days, like Satya Yuga, people will go to forest. Or in Dwapar Yuga, the process for self-realization or to attain one-pointed fixity would be to practice deity worship. Or in the Treta Yuga, it would be to conduct yajnas, like big sacrifices, and they have recitation of mantras and they pour ghee and all that. Today we cannot get high quality ghee. So, and there are no proper brahmanas to conduct the sacrifice. So for Kali Yuga, all the Vedic wisdom, it explains that when we take to the chanting of names of God, particularly this mantra, because it's mentioned in Kali Santarna Upanishad. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this mantra is especially emphasized to be chanted during this age, because that can actually help control the mind. How is it controlling the mind? Because when we chant mantra, it's called transcendental sound vibration. It means it is not a sound vibration of this world. If someone says Coca-Cola, 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 he gets frustrated. And there was a research done based on this, and there's a research paper also published. So there were 3 groups who were made to practice different things, and one group chanted the Hare Krishna mantra. Second group of individuals chanted a concocted mantra, something like Coca-Cola or something, just made up. And third group didn't chant at all, didn't do any meditation technique. So the research observed before they all did the chanting, and after the chanting. So, and the factors which were being observed were the mode of goodness, how they can become peaceful and calm, cool, collected, and how much they were the degree of depression, whether it increased or reduced, and degree of stress. These were the 3 factors. So interestingly, they saw for the degree of depression, the meditation of the concocted mantra and the Hare Krishna mantra, both was a positive, whereas Hare Krishna mantra gave a huge positive, by huge margin it was positive. And the people who didn't chant anything, they had a negative influence. And for stress, those who chanted Hare Krishna mantra, they had a huge positive by big margin. And those who chanted concocted mantra, they were more frustrated because nothing was happening and they're simply chanting over and over again. So they became more frustrated. And those who didn't do anything, it's the same almost. It's again negative. And for sattva, again, those who chanted Hare Krishna mantra, again a huge margin. And those who chanted other mantra, very small margin of positivity. And others who didn't chant anything, again, it's reduced. It's negative. So this is a research paper which I can share. It's by Dr. David Wolf, who's a PhD scholar, and he has done this research. So when we actually, concentration means no other distraction. Just like we have sunlight distributed everywhere, but when we can focus all the sun rays onto a paper, it can burn the paper or a leaf, right? So similarly, our mind is very strong, but only problem is it's diffused in different directions. We are thinking of studies, relationship. We have different circles of thought. But if we can focus all the energy, mental energy, on one particular substance which is spiritual in nature, we can actually control the mind. And it happens by practice. That's why Krishna tells Arjuna. Arjuna tells Krishna, my dear Krishna, you're asking me to control the mind? It's impossible. You ask me to control the wind, I can control the wind. Now we cannot control the wind also. Right? But Arjuna could control the wind. But Krishna said, yes, Arjuna, whatever you're saying is perfectly right. But you can still control the mind by two things. You practice abhyasa and vairagya, by detachment. So what is abhyasa? Practice the right way of doing meditation. So when anything in this world, we build muscles by going to gym regularly, not the one who goes one week and goes after 6 months, then again after 2 months, he doesn't get anything, no results, or very minute result, right? One who goes regularly every week or every day, he gets muscles. Similarly for the mind. So we want to build mental muscles. We want to make the mind strong. So we chant this Hare Krishna mantra regularly, daily, even if someone chants it for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. Gradually capacity increases. Like just like the person who goes to gym, he doesn't lift 5 kg every day throughout his life, right? He is going to increment the weights. He's going to increase the weights and increase the capacity. So similarly, when we do chanting, sometimes the mind gets adjusted to 10 minutes. Then we increase it 20 minutes. So like that, when we keep increasing, the mind becomes very strong. That is one method of how we can control our mind. This is a most important tip, because today people talk about time management, but why are people not able to utilize their time effectively? Because the mind is distracted. People are saying, I have a lot of desires, and I'm not able to fulfill, and that causes depression, because I want to become an engineer but I gotta fail. I want to do this but I didn't get selected for that. So many desires, but I'm not getting anywhere, so that causes depression. And what is the cause of depression? Where is all this happening? It's all in the mind. So the tip to control the mind is one of the more, I feel, the foremost one of the foremost lessons for youth from the Bhagavad Gita. This abhyasa and vairagya. And the chanting of Krishna tells Satatam. He says every time we should keep doing it. So, and that's most practical for us. And today, across the globe, whether it be Indian or Russian or US, European, across the world, everyone is chanting Hare Krishna. And why are they doing it? Not because of blind faith, but because they are able to see the results. Because there are many youths taking it up. So this is a very important aspect of Bhagavad Gita, that controlling the mind.
Right. So stepping on this journey, understanding, reading more about Vedic philosophy clearly shows you that difference, and then you're aware of the levels that exist, and then you can be one step closer towards controlling your mind and not being prone to all the impulses that the mind is often prone to. Okay. There's a Buddhist saying, if there was no illusion, then there would be no enlightenment. The idea of an illusion is prevalent in Vedic philosophy. So the follow-up question is, what is Maya? What is this illusion?
Yeah. Maya literally means, ma means not, Sanskrit. And ya is that to an object. So that which is not is Maya. So in this, why, but generally we see in this world, people use the term Maya. This is Maya, that is Maya. So this is real, but it is Maya because it's temporary. Because something I can say that this particular object, this laptop can give me happiness, but the laptop is going to wear out after 10 years. So then I change my source of happiness to, suppose, girlfriend. Girlfriend can give me happiness, but she is there, and after marriage and everything, after once we die or she dies, it's going to go. The relationship is going to be cut. So that's why we say it's Maya. So Maya means when we actually take something uh, which from its temporary nature and make put it in a permanent position, just like just like the examples I gave you. So actually, the laptop or the girlfriend or the objects of this world cannot give us true happiness just by the dint of the temporary nature. So, but if we think that this is permanent, that all these pleasures are permanent, then we are actually going to succumb to Maya, illusion, because it's not true. But nonetheless, these things are required for general life. I'm just speaking from a philosophical point of view.
So then what is permanent? What is eternal? What should we focus on?
Yeah, so the permanent or the Sat is referred to our spiritual nature and to God, because we are eternal. According to Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna that you are eternal and I am eternal. I am Sanatan, you are Sanatan. That is Sanatan. Sanatan means eternal. It always exists. And the something that connects both of us, that's the Dharma, is Sanatan Dharma. And we see what is that Sanatan Dharma. In every one of us, we all want to serve someone. We are either serving our parents, we are serving our spouse, we're serving our siblings, we're serving our family, relatives, nation, right? Or the humanity or animals, like Peter is doing. So we want to serve someone. Why? Because the nature of any one of us is to serve. Just like the nature of salt is to be salty, right? Or nature of sugar is to be sweet. Or nature of water is to be liquid. But some people, they say, but you can make it into ice. But if you keep ice at room temperature, it's going to come back to its original nature. So nature is very inherent to the object of that to which the nature belongs. So our nature is that we want to serve, but serve whom? So what Bhagavad Gita says is Sanatan Dharma means we want to serve God. Why we want to serve God? Because I am eternal and God is eternal. So relationship between the two is eternal. So Krishna tells this to Arjuna. Arjuna, don't worry, fighting your family members, because they are not this body. There's spirit soul sitting inside the body, just like a driver for the car. So if you kill the body, but the soul, the actual person, he is not killed. This is one of the things Krishna tells to Arjuna. Not that we now go on, and kill everyone, but that is required for spiritual understanding, because in our life we'll get so many decisions to make, right? So when we take decisions based on the Bhagavad Gita, we can actually get a very mature decision out of it. Or else it's very difficult to make choices.
In the idea of the soul being eternal, do you then believe in reincarnations? Do you believe the soul is eternal? There's a book, Many Lives, Many Masters, in which
yes.
they cover this concept that souls often travel together and they're often reborn as different relationships across time. So do you believe in that?
Yes. Yeah. Actually, Krishna talks about reincarnation, everything in the Bhagavad Gita. He tells Arjuna, the first advice Krishna gives to Arjuna is that he says, Dehi nosmin yata dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantara prapti dhirastatana muyati. He says, just as while staying in this body, the soul is actually having this body go through different stages: childhood, adolescent, adulthood, old age, and death. So after death, what happens? So we see while being in this body, the body is changing. So the point of death, you change the body itself. Just like you're wearing clothes, and suppose I'm wearing this shirt and it wears out. What I should do? Throw this shirt and get a new one, right? So similarly, the soul actually takes up another body. Krishna tells.
So that's what happens when you die?
Yeah. So you actually take up one body. Once it wears out, you take up another body. Like that. So that is called reincarnation. And when we die, just like I told you about gross body and subtle body, so the soul is covered by subtle body and gross body, right? So the external body remains, but the subtle body, which consists of the mind, intelligence, and ego, goes along with the soul to the next body. That is why there are cases of, phobias. You have heard of phobias? So some people are hydrophobic. They fear water. So Dr. Ian Stevenson from University of Illinois, so he says he has done intense research on reincarnation. He says the phobias exist because of past strong impressions on the mind. So if someone died by drowning in water, by nature, they're going to be very fearful. And there's no reason why. Like people are all confused. Why this person simply afraid of water? Like my father, if he sees blood, he cannot, he faints. Because there's some connection. So it's not just by chance. It's all very logical. So anything which has a strong impression on the mind, and because the mind travels with the soul to the next body, that actually carries all these different tendencies. There's another case study by Dr. Ian Stevenson. It's called the James pilot. So he's just a small boy of years 2 or 3, but he can explain the entire aircraft to you, right? The war aircraft. And finally, in that there's a video where they do a research, and he actually finds out that he was actually part of a previous war between Japanese and the US during the World War II. He was one of the pilots. So this small boy in this next body, he's in this small boy's body, he actually has his action figures. He names all of them based on his co-pilots in the previous life. Yeah. So it's all very. It's one of the research.
Have you had a moment where you were able to visualize one of your previous lives? Naturally, hypnotherapy exists as well as a practice, or maybe through meditation. Were you ever able to go back, peel back the years, and actually see a different avatar of your own soul?
No, I haven't tried.
Yeah, but is that possible?
I mean, if hypnotherapy, it is definitely possible. Like just like in our rituals, we call something called the Shraddha ceremony. Mm-hmm. When someone passes away, yes, we have this pinda which is formed. So every year we make this pinda and we have rituals. So what it actually means is the person who has been departed actually goes to Pitraloka. He or she stays there, and the time difference is like relative theory. So here 1 year is 1 day for them. So we perform the Shraddha ceremony once a year. So that pinda actually is like feeding him once a day, him or her. So there is, now that science, we may not be able to understand how it's, I see the pinda is still here. How is he getting fed? Because it's not being eaten by anything. Right? And of course, crows eat, and there's some other understanding. But we see even today, the scientists have cracked the communication technology. Like I pick up my phone, I can call someone in India. So that is a technology. Now, a layman may not understand the intricacies of such a technology, but someone who's learned, he knows. So in our Vedic tradition, there's so many Rishi Munis, all these, they're all like scientists. They know all these things happening, how it's happening. Right? So all this technology exists, but today it has been lost due to lack of knowledge. That's all. But it is there. So it is possible.
It's a very interesting idea about the way people view death. It's not an end. It's just the beginning of something new.
That encouraged Arjuna to fight.
Yeah. Reminds me of a quote from Harry Potter, actually, where Albus Dumbledore had said, to a well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. So, yeah, so I see similarities here. Okay, so before we start wrapping up, I would love for you to interpret what I've built with the Lego. Okay. Since you didn't build anything today. Yes. So, what do you think this represents? These masterpieces.
Wow, it's very difficult for me to make out, but this looks like an animal. I can tell you in Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of the most important literatures, with like natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So in that, when King Parikshit, who is grandson of Arjuna, son of Abhimanyu, he is going through his kingdom, and he sees a bull standing on one leg. So it has like one leg.
Oh, right.
Something like an animal. Yeah. So it's so it has 4 legs actually, but the personification of Kali, this is called the Kali Yuga. right? So the personification of Kali has already cut off the other legs, and the first leg stands for 4 pillars. They are truthfulness, mercy, and at least truthfulness and mercy. I mean, the 4 sinful pillars are, I mean, these are the 4 pillars which uphold dharma, and the opposite of these are intoxication, meat eating, or illicit affairs, and gambling. So the one is mercy, which actually goes against violent actions like killing, etc. Another one is truthfulness, which goes against gambling. So we have other counterpart for intoxication, and other counterpart for illicit affairs. Cleanliness for illicit affairs, and there's one more. I mean, just like at the tip of my tongue. But that is generally the understanding of the 4 legs. And it is said in this age, only one leg called truthfulness is remaining. But I don't know how much is remaining now. This is 5,000 years ago. So this is that, and maybe this is Kali killing, cutting the legs.
That's exactly what I was building.
Really?
No.
Okay.
But I love this interpretation. I think that's the best one so far. Okay, so let's move into our final questions.
Yeah.
What are some books, movies, or role models that have strongly influenced you in your life?
I am very much inspired by the life of our founder Acharya of ISKCON. It's called Srila Prabhupada. So at the age of 70, when people in this world are planning to retire, they want to go to different parts of the world and have a vacation or something, or just be in their homes, read newspaper. So Srila Prabhupada worked strenuously, and he traveled to the West in a cargo ship. Cargo ship is never meant to carry passengers, meant to carry cargo. So it's like a rough and tough ship. And he's like a sensitive old person at the age of 70. And he faced massive heart attacks twice in the ship. It was like a over 30 days journey, 30 to 40 days journey. And he was seasick, like because of being on land. Sea is so unnatural. So he underwent so much, and he only carried 40 rupees with him. And he was planning to go to New York. What is 40 rupees? At that time, even if you consume $5-7, that's all in the conversion rate at that time. So he took such a risk just to give the principles of Gita to the Western world. Why? Because he understood at that time the Indians, everyone would say, I know the Gita. I've been in connection with Gita since my childhood, but no one would actually practice it. So it's like the familiarity breeds contempt, right? So he went to the West because he understood that East is always following the West. So what he did, he went at the age of 70 to West, to New York City, which was in those times, it was a very tough city. I have heard from many people here, in those days, you cannot even cross a street without being mugged. So they would just rob you. Even people would hear gunshots every night. So it was a very rough and tough city, very violent city. And Srila Prabhupada came, and he took all the risks to give out the knowledge of Gita. Gradually, he got many sincere Westerners who could understand what he's trying to give, who could connect with the Bhagavad Gita. And today, the top universities, which all in their libraries, they have the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And there are so many professors. There's George Harrison, who was chanting Hare Krishna. And there is Alfred Ford. He is the chairman of the Ford Motors. And there's so many top people. They're PhD scholars, they're poets, philosophers, everyone who's chanting Hare Krishna and who's practicing the lifestyle of Bhagavad Gita. So he's one of the people who has inspired me the most. And apart from him, I also see my spiritual teacher. His name is Radhanath Swami. He's also a very great motivational speaker. He has the special quality of connecting everything to the Bhagavad Gita. So he actually, when I hear him, I've seen him how he can actually tell people that just by practicing Bhagavad Gita, you can solve all the problems, environmental problems, relationship problems, political problems. All these things can be, you can be saved from all this just by practicing the Gita. So that requires a lot of depth in understanding. He's my other. And of course, I have many other teachers also.
Yes.
And the books.
Books.
Yeah.
Books and movies.
Movies, okay. I mean, from childhood, with regard to movies, I would be usually most inspired by animated movies, because they would always have a good lesson. good morals coming out from it. Uh, but generally, the movies in our traditional languages, we have movies based on different pastimes, like based from Prahlad or Krishna. We all know Ramayan of Ramanan Sagar, how famous it was. So these are some of um, the movies or TV series which actually helped me. I mean, there were other things also I've watched, but it's not really helpful. And regard to books, I would say the Bhagavad Gita as it is. That this has helped me a lot. And apart from Bhagavad Gita as it is, we have many other subsidiary books like Science of Self-Realization and all these books. They have helped me. And outside this, I usually before uh, having this copy of Bhagavad Gita, I never have read. I don't think I've read any religious or spiritual texts at all. So usually this is what has given me a good motivation.
You mentioned Sri Radhanath Swami, and there's one quote of his that I really like where he said that the problem is not the problem. The problem is that your mind is consumed by the problem. And I find that very relevant today as well and always in
Yes.
my life. Okay, so we started with the poem. It's only fitting that we present the last two questions with the poem as well. So this is a poem called The Dash, and it goes something like this. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. So, what would you like your legacy to be like? What would you want your dash to represent?
What legacy I would like to leave would be that people actually try to practice Gita in their lives and teach it to others. If anyone can do this, I think my life is not just my life, and his life is successful.
So, follow-up question.
Yeah.
Do you believe in destiny?
Destiny, yes, but there's both destiny and free will.
Can they both exist?
Yeah, both exist.
How would that be possible if there is?
Yeah, like Gaur Gopal Prabhu, I heard this from him. He gives this analogy, just like when you go to Mumbai airport and catch a flight to Delhi. So you're destined to go to Delhi, whatever it may be, right? But in the flight, you can create a scene. You can mess around with the air hostess. You can trouble other people. And when you land in Delhi airport, you go directly to jail, right? So the choice is there when you're in the flight. But otherwise, you sit next to a businessman in the flight. You make a good friendship with him and strike some deal. And after you get off the Delhi airport, you have a good strong person in contact and you become a good businessman, right? So though Mumbai to Delhi is fixed, what we do during that time actually shapes our future destiny, right? So either jail or you become a good
So
businessman.
it can be changed.
It can be changed, yes. There are actually I don't remember the terms, but there are 3 types of karma. We say, like, karma is referred to many things. It can be action or destiny or reaction. All this is karma. So, but there are 3 types of karma. One karma is very difficult to change. Like, there are some students, they are like 8 pointers and they put all the efforts for next exam and they get 8.1. Not much. How much ever you do it, it's just out of capacity. But there's some amount of karma which can easily change, right? So in your destiny, it is not there, but you put effort, you can change this destiny and get a better destiny or something like that, right? But also there is, when we actually become practitioners of the Gita, or when we start practicing, or when we start worshipping Krishna, when we become devotees, what happens is, is if there is a race between a Luna, what's a Luna? No, it's like a moped, moped.
Oh yeah. Oh,
In India.
okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
of
there's a
course.
moped
Yeah.
and you have Mercedes Benz and you have a Maruti 800. They have a race. So it's natural, it's understood who's going to win. So now suppose Luna wants to win. It's not going to win by its own capacity at all. But when we become devotees, it's like a helicopter coming, picking up the Luna and taking it to the finish line, right? And it can actually win also. So when we take to spiritual lives, it is very much possible that the karma can be completely changed. Our destiny can be completely changed. Whatever, it can be arranged in a different way also. That's also possible.
Lots of things to think about. Final question. What do you think is the meaning of life?
For me, life means like I think Mark Twain had a saying. He said there are two important days in our life: the day you were born,
Yeah.
and the day you find out why.
Why you're born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the why is a very important aspect of life. I mean, we can question. Srimad Bhagavatam says everyone in this world is questioning and answering. You're questioning and I'm answering. In the school, the professor is questioning, the student is answering. Everywhere the question answers are going on. But what is the subject matter of discussion? That is very important. So if we can talk about hundreds of things, but if we can focus on the right, we can do other things also. But at the same time, have a focus on what is important. Because can I tell you a story?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, there's a story of a person. He was in his boat, in his ship, and there was a hurricane or something like that, and he collapsed. The boat collapsed, and he was pushed to the shore of an island. So he didn't know where he was when he got up in the morning. And then he saw some tribal people coming, taking him in a palanquin, some sort of a palanquin, and taking him. And he got scared. But what they did, they bathed him, they dressed him like a king, and put him on the throne. And everyone was like paying obeisances and saying that you are the king. So he was bewildered. He was, for some time, he was the king, but he became a little suspicious. So he called one of his ministers and asked, what's going on? The ministers told him they have a ritual in this island. And what is that ritual? You've heard this?
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah.
The ritual is whoever comes to this island, they make him the king for 1 year. And then they take him out, they put him in another island, which has nothing. It's like a barren island. He will practically die by being killed by some ferocious animal there. That's all. That is their ritual. So then the king, he saw maybe 7-8 months were already passed. He started thinking what to do. So he was intelligent. So what he did, I asked some students, and it's very difficult to guess. Some students say that he actually he started enjoying more. He started enjoying as much as possible before he was put into other island. So like that, different answers came. But one intelligent boy answered this. He said what he would have done if he was in the position of a king is he would actually tell all the ministers to start collecting all the assets in this kingdom and put it to the next island. Put it in the boat and send it to the next island. And then when he was thrown there, he became the king. He had everything. So similarly, intelligent are those, according to Bhagavad Gita, intelligent are those who actually plan ahead, who are long-term thinkers, right? Who don't react on a short-term basis. So what happens after death? If we have this human body, and Bhagavad Gita says there's reincarnation and there is life after death. So how do we utilize our life? So if we are studying in a university and we have different activities, there are many clubs. So sometimes what happens, a student goes into so many other clubs and he fails his semester exam. So the whole point of that semester was to prepare for the exam. You can do other things, right? But finally you have to prepare for this exam. And if you pass that, then your life, then the semester is success. So similarly, in our life, it is said the life is the time given to prepare for the final examination, which is death. And how we prepare in this life, that means what are the subject matters we discuss upon, or what is our focus on, how are we practicing our life. It actually, at the time of death, it is decided. What do I mean by decided? That is the time where our future destination is chosen for us, how we spent our life. Because our future destination depends on two things. It is desire and deserve. So if we have practiced throughout our life, if we have lived a life based on principles of the Gita, then we deserve, and we have cultivated a desire to go to the spiritual world, which in itself is a huge another topic, right? So, but if we lead our life in that way, then the life is successful. But forgetting what happens after death, many people say there's no life after death. I mean, it's such a dangerous philosophy that is. Because what if there is life? Gita says there is life. So then we live in a eat, drink, and be merry mood, right? And then what we do is mostly activities which are harming oneself, activities which are hurting others, or get into so many other troubles, and person dies, right? And the time of death, he's thinking of so many other things. Then he is again reborn. So that's why Shankaracharya, in his Bhajagovindam prayers, he says Punarapi Jannam, Punarapi Maranam. So people are simply being born, dying, and again born, again dying. So we have to quit the cycle and go to spiritual world. Like I say. So I consider life to be meaningful when we do other things also. Be participative in the clubs, no problem. But focus on the end exam and how we should live our life accordingly.
Strong meaning. Definitely something to ponder over. Reminded me of this movie Groundhog Day, which also had a similar message behind it. Arjun, thank you so much. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Vedic philosophy, join ISKCON, where can they do so?
They can, if they're in the US, if they're nearby Brooklyn, I think they should come. New York City, you can come to ISKCON Brooklyn, or if they want to connect to ISKCON, practically ISKCON Center is there across the globe, every city.
Sounds good. If you want to connect with Arjun, the doors are always open at ISKCON. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.